be cool to see those guys extend a little bit.
All right. And that leads us into number one, the Ohio champion. I don't know what we're going to call it, but number one in points for the year in 2019 in Ohio. The driver is actually from California, and he's younger than most every driver on this list. So without further ado, our number one driver was Buddy Kofoid this year, driving the Ed Newmeister 11N. He ended up with 4 wins, 3 at Fremont, won the All-Star Speed Week finale at Wayne County Speedway. He had the most top 5s in Ohio this year. He had 23 top 5s and the most top 10s as well. He had 31 top 10s. I mean, this kid was just incredible this year.
Yeah, the 23 top 5s and 31 top 10s are both records over the last 3 seasons. And not to mention, since I've been keeping track of this, he's the first driver to ever eclipse 30 top 10s in a year. So an absolutely amazing year for his first full-time year in Ohio. And who knows where he's going next, but I definitely will be following him and see where he ends up. I just hope he doesn't abandon us for the pavement, but you never know.
It was a ton of fun to watch Buddy drive in Ohio this year. That you mentioned that win at Wayne County during Speed Week. I mean, not only was it a win, but he did it in grand fashion on either the next to the last lap or the white flag lap. I can't remember, but Chris, you were talking about Cap Henry being aggressive, and Buddy's aggressive, but they're different drivers, aggressive in different ways. And I enjoyed watching both of those drivers go at it on different tracks this year. So Buddy is definitely a young shoe. I'm waiting with bated breath here to see what he's going to do in 2020. It's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, Buddy's, I don't know him real well. No, Buddy is like a little brother to me. I got to work on the 11N a little bit this year when I wasn't racing, and Wayne County was one of those nights, so it was pretty cool. But yeah, Buddy, I mean, as good of a race car driver as he is, the better person off the racetrack, and obviously the love Steph Linder puts on Twitter and Facebook and everything, there's a reason for it. He's a good kid. I learned a lot from him this year. Sometimes what to do and sometimes what maybe not to do. But Buddy was, like you said, it was him and Cap. They're both equally as aggressive, but 2 different styles. And when they got to duke it out, that was a lot of fun to watch because they're both, and you hate to say it this way, but they're both willing to hang one in the catch fence. That's how bad they want to win. And so yeah, but 2020, I think, is going to bring on a lot of great things for Buddy. I think it's going to be a big step in what he wants to do. I'm not going to go much further than that, but I know, I believe nobody wants to see him go to the pavement side, but that's where the kids' goals are. And not coming from a super wealthy family out in California, I think that's what he wants. That's where the money is, and he'd like to go F1, but he's too old for that. As crazy as that sounds, yeah. But he's an incredible talent, and he's not something you see every day. And I think you guys are going to have fun watching him in 2020, and I hope he still gets to come around and race around Ohio next year on his off nights. I think that might be in the talks or something. I know that's something he'd want to do. But yeah, that's about as far as I'll go with Buddy, because I don't think, not everybody knows what's going on. I don't know full-heartedly, but a pretty good idea what's happening.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be an official announcement at some point. But
by the way, not to be that guy, but his merchandise just came out. Go check Steph Linder's tweet. He just brought a new Buddy Kofoid Racing line out. He's going to have to give me 5% for this, but I'll plug that right now.
And, but the second one that the Linders have brought over that's been really successful, Carson Macedo, drove the 09X for Mintz a couple years back, and that kind of launched his career because he picked up a win at Fremont, I believe, his very first start in that car, and then he went on to the Garrity car, and now he's with Kyle Larson Racing on the World Outlaws. So apparently the Linders are the focal point of jumping everyone into the big time.
There, at one point last year, it was actually during the Jim Ford Classic, we had a buddy in the car, and a guy came up and said, "Who's next out of your California orphanage?" And so now there's the joke that they have the orphanage. They just, pick one out of the hat. And but Carson actually played a huge role in getting Buddy over here. He was just up Mike Linder's butt about it. Just, and get this Kofoid kid, who? Because at the time he didn't have a big ride out there. He had a ride, but it wasn't a huge team. And so then Knoxville Nationals came. Carson had his impressive run with the 41 car, and Ed Neumeister happened to be out there, and Ed enjoys his beverages, and Carson got into him at the right time. You got to get that Buddy kid out. You got to get that Kofoid kid. And, he's worked out, get him out for a couple nights. And Carson was brought over by, trying to think of that fella, Jason Myers, pointed him towards the 09 car. They became great friends. Carson's nickname's actually Baby Jesus through the Linders. Except he does no wrong, just ask Steph. And then Buddy's Baby Jesus Jr., thanks to Carson. But, they got, again, another great person off the racetrack, and it seems to go hand in hand with those guys. They don't bring over jerks with talent. They bring over the kids that have a bunch of talent and just as good people off the racetrack.
Talking to a lot of Buddy's competition this year, there was, when I would ask them who they thought their toughest competition would be, they would always, if it wasn't Buddy that I was asking, it was, they would always name Buddy as some of their toughest competition, and that he made them raise their game. And I think it showed this year because we were treated to some great racing all year long.
Yeah, absolutely. DJ Foose, last year, in the Kaiser 23, I didn't know if DJ would race again. I'm glad he's back out, and I'm glad to see him having fun and being competitive. But that right there just proves that's a guy that's going to rise to the occasion, and I think that 11N might have sparked that a little bit, which again just gave the fans everything they could ask for. So,
all in all, it was, I think the top 25 is a great representation of who the best drivers in Ohio were this year. We had some guys improve. We had some guys go back a little bit. But all in all, I feel like these are probably the best 25 drivers in Ohio.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Obviously 25, Logan Schuchart didn't spend a ton of time in Ohio, but, from 24 up, those are the guys that invested in the Ohio racetracks. And this is a pretty incredible list to look at. JD, if we wanted to find this, if listeners wanted to go and take a look at this, is it available out there on the web somewhere where they can check it out?
It's not yet, but it will be on pitgate.com at some point during this week. I just got to get everything formatted for over there, so that'll be up, as well as later on in the year on Pitgate. I'll also have the Ohio winners list for the 410s, 360s, 305s, non-wings, super late models, and modifieds as well later in the year once they wrap up their seasons.
If you once that's up, we'll make sure that we share that on our social media, so you can go check that out and get through the list. How many total drivers are on here? 100 and what is it?
153 or 54.
So 154 410 drivers.
Those are just the guys that finished in the top 10.
Yeah.
There were probably quite a few more that competed in a race, but just 154 drivers that got a top 10, which is awesome within itself.
Here's a random question I got for you guys. We're all race fans. We're all race people. Who would you say the biggest surprise or most improved, or maybe you could take that as two different questions that on the list or not on the list that we talked about as a 410 this year? Who kind of surprised you guys, or who looked the best from last year?
It'd have to be Nate. In my opinion, it'd have to be Nate Dussel.
Yeah, I agree. Nate Dussel is definitely the most improved driver. I'm not sure if I'd really say I was surprised by him, but he had an extremely good year and just showed a lot of improvement. Like I said, he's my pick to win the Fremont Track Championship next year. So, but I'd say maybe the biggest surprises were maybe like TJ Michael or Trey Jacobs, because especially TJ, he's came a long way. When he ran the All-Stars, he was kind of, the mid to back of the pack kind of car with them, and then he came back home and did okay last year, got a few top 10s, but just never could really get anything going towards the front. And then he got his win this year and started placing a lot more consistently. I mean, he only had 7 top 5s, but he also had 4 6th-place finishes, so he was always near the top 5 this year too. So those would be my 2 picks.
Yeah, for me, it would be Nate Dussel. I mean, just kind of looking at him throughout the year, and he was always there in the points battles, and it's like, holy smokes, he might actually pull one of these off. But like I said earlier, I definitely think he's going to make some noise next year.
I think I would agree. If I didn't, I wouldn't have said it, though, because you guys all said Nate.
So, I have a couple other notable guys on here that we didn't talk about. I'll run through those quick. So at number 30, we had Donnie Schatz. He ended up with 3 wins on the year at Eldora. Number 37 was Rico Abreu. 38 was Brad Sweet with 2 wins, including the big Kings Royal win. Number 56 was Christopher Bell, who picked up the Jim Ford Classic win on his first night out in that car, actually. And then number 67 was Smoke Tony Stewart. He ended up picking up a win at Atomic Speedway early on in the season. Number 80 was Kyle Larson, who picked up a Speed Week win. Number 104 was Michigander Ryan Rule, who surprised a lot of people and got a 3rd place early on at Attica this year. And then number 118 would be Slammin' Sammy Swindell. Just like I said, just a couple other notable names in there that we didn't get to talk about.
Yeah, and one name in there too that was a big surprise. Not really notable for his winged sprint car racing, but Justin Grant was 73rd. He had a win and a 3rd place finish in a couple of starts this year. I believe both at Atomic. But he did very well, picking up his first wing sprint car win as a guy who's pretty much ran on wing the majority of his career. So that was pretty impressive to see him take that NOS Jimmy Miller 6 to victory lane there.
Where did Jack end up on the list?
I believe Jack was 35th.
How can you not say him as notable, Jacob? Come on.
I know. I thought about it. I thought about it when I was making the list, and I'm like, I need to go back and make sure I put him down, but I got distracted by iRacing, I think.
You want to jump on later?
You don't want to race with me.
And Jacob, did you mention that there were 81 races that were accounted for in this list in Ohio?
Yeah, I think it was mentioned early on. But yeah, 81 races this year. And
even with the rain.
Right.
Still got 81 races then.
Right. And over those 81 races, we had an average of 30 cars per race throughout the year. So, I mean, that's a
impressive.
Very stout average. I mean, obviously the All-Star shows bumped that up a little bit, but, I mean, there is, like, for instance, in May, there was a AFCS show at Attica with 39 cars, and a fast show at Sharon with 43. So we get plenty of cars in Ohio without even having sanctioning bodies there, the major national ones. So